Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of Caged Full Throttle here on the Downforce UK network. And as you may have already have guessed by that opening sentence, no, I am not your regular host, Mr. Matt Josie, but I am indeed Jordan, and I'll be taking on the job of hosting tonight. Unfortunately, Matt couldn't be here tonight, but I do have my regular partner in crime with me, Mr. James Keane. Good evening, James.
Good evening, Jordan. Good evening to everyone listening. Sorry for the small delay with getting started today. As Matt's not here, we've had to set up all the technical side on my laptop today. I've got a different laptop than usual, so I had to get everything set up. Also, sorry, I believe I might have actually played the outro music instead of the intro music. So if you got a little bit more than you was expecting there at the start, apologies for that. But I think on with the show. Hopefully we got the gremlins out the way.
Yes, hopefully we do have the gremlins out the way. And as well, for any fans of Ed, who is normally on the show with us, unfortunately he couldn't be here tonight either, as he's in Scotland playing with his Hot Wheels. Of course, as well, don't forget we have the message board open. So if you want to send us a message on Spreaker or on Facebook Live, then please do so. We've got a packed show for you tonight with our new recruit, Mr. Rob Woolhouse, taking on the Mouldy Old Quiz later on tonight. That'll be at around 8:30, maybe 8:50, as we've started a little bit later. But as usual, here on Full Throttle, we're going to start off with some meeting reports. And James, I believe you're going to kick us off with the Aldershot Banger World Series.
I am. I was down at Aldershot Raceway last Sunday for the kick-off to the Aldershot season. In true Aldershot fashion, the weather was incredibly changeable, going from sunny to rainy to hail to sunny to very cold to very tired. The amount of bangers that entered, we actually had, put on an extra heat. So we had a third heat for the bangers, and also the junior bangers also had to be split into two heats because so many of them entered. I don't know if that's to do with the new rules being entered, if more people want to enter, or it's just because it's the first one of the year, obviously replacing what would have been the traditional Wimbledon Banger World Series event. So across the heats were very tightly contested. Heats 1 and 2 kicked off very lively. Heat 1, we had a people carrier go onto its side after about 2 laps. And that race was won in the end by 717 Jack Tuffin. Heat 2 saw the man who was so close to being world champion last year, 617 Jack Overy, absolutely flying round, and he took that race win. Heat 3 was the one that everyone was looking forward to. It consisted of TGB, it consisted of DWA being out there, the Bears are out there. It didn't really catch light as everyone was expecting, and it was won by DWA member 341 and Jonesy. The last chance, we also put on a last chance qualifier, which wasn't on the original running order. That was won by 102 Clayton Wheeler, and him and the other, I think it was top 6 or might have been top 10, went into the wild card. The wild card final had a great field of cars out there with some action, but 617 Jack Overy, as he has done so much throughout his career, managed to find his way through the tight Aldershot track to pick up the wild card and be the first man who has qualified onto the Ipswich grid for the year. The showdown. The showdown this year will be lengthened. There are more. The showdown has been mentioned. There'll be more laps this year because before it was obviously just 10 laps. The showdown exists, of course, because DDs don't tend to really happen in national bangers, especially early on in the season. It's BWS rounds anyway. They obviously do occur in national bangers, but in BWS rounds you don't tend to see much in the way of a DD. The showdown itself was run by 204 Charlie King, who finished ahead of Dino Junior and Ricky Finney. And Ricky Finney had a great meeting all the way through, really. He was third in Heat 2, fourth in the wild card, and then third in the showdown. He was on the pace all the way through, but just couldn't find his way to the top spot. It was then asked if anyone really wanted to go for the DD. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, the only person that really seemed up for a DD was Noddy in his people carrier. I think a few others went round, but at that point the meeting was called. It had been a long day anyway. I do also want to give a mention for the junior bangers. It has always been the case that the junior bangers at Aldershot always put on an amazing show. We also had one junior driver loaded up for waving people into him on the back straight, which is an interesting state of affairs in a junior banger. but the junior banger heats were all action all the way through. Heat 1 was stopped after a quarter of a lap because we had a car onto its side. That was won by 294 Patrick Hughes. Heat 2 was won by 186 Lewis Fazy, who had a better day all round than his sister in the Nationals did. Heat 3 was won by 7 Josh Mackey. Heat 4 by 90 Joey Holmes, and the final was won by 294 Patrick Hughes. He picked up his second win of the day, winning from 90 Joey Holmes, who was also a heat winner. But the action was amazing. The final of the junior bangers, it was within the first couple of laps. There was the entire far end of the track was completely blocked around turn 3 and 4. They weren't scared to be get stuck in. The track had got greasy after the hailstorm, but that didn't seem to slow them down at all. We also had so also in that throughout the junior bangers. It was one of the biggest fields we've had at Aldershot, which is where the heats were split, and I think they just put on an amazing show and showed how good they'll be. I don't quite know how many are on the brink of going through to nationals, but if their meeting was anything to go by, I think we'll be in for a good show when they do graduate. So yeah, that was the first BWS at Aldershot. The crowd is amazing. Is one of the biggest crowds I've seen at the new Aldershot. The traffic was horrendous because if anyone that's been to Aldershot, you'll know that you go through some sort of parklandy type things around the MAD, but the queues were all the way right back onto the main road. It did take people quite a few times to go in. The overflow car park was there, but it was great to see such a good crowd turnout for the first one. In regard to whether the new rules had worked in terms of the Entertainers League, difficult to say at this point. There were a couple of heats where no entertainer points were given out at all. Probably a little bit predictable in the first event, people trying to get onto the wildcard grid to get a chance to qualify. But with us, there's quite a lot of well-prepared, good-looking cars out there. So I think maybe I don't think people. It wasn't an absolute wreck fest of a meeting like Silver War was a couple of weeks before. But then it probably was never going to be. But it was entertaining all round. Hopefully everyone went home happy and on to Aldershot this Sunday.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, James. And of course, the next round of the Bangor World Series isn't far away, with round 2 taking place at the Vauxhall Stadium, Ipswich, on the Saturday 9th of March, with a 6:30 p.m. start time. I believe the bookings have already opened for that, so if you want to book in, please obviously contact Speedworth or book in via the thread on Oval Banger Chat. So now, moving on to the Unlimited National Banger Icebreaker at Kings Lynn. It raised 88 cars, with probably the car of the meeting going to 256 Mark Ginders, who had a very smart 1971 Pontiac for the Boston Warlords. And also, it must be said, fair play to number 16 Fagus, Michael Flaherty, for his nicely presented Ford Scorpio estate. I believe that another member of the Last Riots team had a Volvo limo. So also well done to him as well for that. Now, obviously, the Icebreaker in recent years hasn't been as lively as what it used to be. But nevertheless, this year it did look like it was a good meeting again from the videos. The Shunters and the Money team, TMT, put in a decent performance with the rivalry they were having with each other throughout the afternoon. The highlight of that probably being the 577 Alfie Lee putting his used Firecracker Yank to good use, nailing 791 Nicky Spud Young over his rear right wheel before turning round and delivering an equally as hard shot over the rear left wheel in one of the races. As you would expect, 288 Carl and 388 Taylor Salter were also well involved in the day's action, as they normally are, as were the Team Last Rights from Northern Ireland. And of course, they've got a big meeting coming up at their home track, which I believe is on the Saturday 9th and Sunday 10th of March, with a good booking list there for that as well. There was also a spectacular incident on turns 1 and 2 involving 830 Lee White and 329 Michael Carter, which brought out the red flags. All in all, it looked like a really good day, to be fair. Maybe not the hardest icebreaker ever. But let's be honest, what Unlimited meeting is going to be full on crashing all the way through. Team Extreme retained the Unlimited Banger icebreaker title, with the Boston Warlords winning the Entertainers Award for their action during the day. The Micro National Bangers were also in support, and they raised just under 40 cars, which is a good entry considering I believe they were a late addition to the meeting, and they had their moments throughout the day. One particular incident being 51 James Licorish's spectacular rollover at the start of the second race of the day on turn 3. And if you haven't seen that video or pictures of the crash, go and check it out, because I don't know if you've seen it, James, but it was absolutely spectacular, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I've only seen a few brief clips, but it definitely looked that way.
It did indeed. And 308 Kevin Baxter took the Micro National Banger Grand Final for the day there. The Junior Bangers also were in support and provided some very lively action, as they always do. And I believe on the Saturday the 16th of March they have their white and yellow grade series final. So again, Junior Banger drivers, if you want to book into that, please obviously go through Trackstar or your own promotion. A couple of weeks later, it was the annual 1500cc icebreaker, which raised around 130 cars. Now that entry was slightly down on previous years, but it's still a fantastic entry nonetheless for any National Banger meeting nowadays. Team All Sorts, Mad Hatters and the Demons were well involved in the opening heats, putting in loads of good hits on each other. There was a small pile-up on turns 1 and 2 with some heavy T-bones, jack-ups and head-ons between the teams. And later on in the day, it was Team Jeff and Team Ream who were putting in some very good hits again on turn 2 against each other. And in a later race, 297 Aston Levers put in a great head-on to 191 Kieran Greenway on turns 3 and 4. And that was absolutely massive, but both drivers got out fine and shook hands. 388 Taylor Lampsauer went on a one-man wrecking mission in one of the races, delivering a few decent following ins. The teammates A won, whilst the Predators A team won the Entertainers Trophy. And again, it did look like it was a really good day at Kingsland for the 1500cc icebreaker. It was also good to see a few Continentals over there as well. I believe it was 48. Philip Molina, I think's his name. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But he had what I believe was a 1970s Opel or something like that. It's not something you see very often in 1500cc bangers nowadays. So fair play to him for bringing that along. And I believe in the first race of the day that he actually got followed in that. So he came all that way with a really unusual car and got followed in the first race. But hey, that's National Banger racing at times. And James, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, on the 1500cc icebreaker, or have seen any videos from it.
So I've unfortunately couldn't make it, but I have seen a few videos put around. It did again. I don't know. It's always hard to tell. You can't really judge what a meeting's been like from clipped highlights. Usually, like when people say we've had this debate about streaming before, you never really get the full sort of atmosphere of the event or how it was. But it looked pretty decent. I don't think, again, I've used this phrase a lot, but I don't think anyone went home too unhappy. Congratulations to all the drivers on the day, however they did, and thanks to all the fans going to support it.
Yes, indeed. Couldn't have said it better myself. And now we're going to turn our attention to more recent times with the Stanley Street Banger opener. It looked like a decent day of action with plenty of nudges and spins, cars going up on two wheels if they got caught up on another car. Typical Street Banger action, really, you know. Just under 60 cars were in attendance, which is a good start to the year considering over the winter Stanley actually banned Vauxhall Sephiroths from racing in their Street Banger category, which did sort of raise a few eyebrows. But so far, it looks like a good decision, especially when you consider that 808 Zach Stevens raced the BMW Mini. I believe that's the first one to be raced, and it was actually Zach's first time racing, so fair play to Zach. He put in a monster hit in the DD on Liam Ivans on turn 4, with Ivans' rear right wheel going underneath the car and jacking it up slightly. So that's a pretty cool little wreck for Street Bangers there. And also, on the subject of material, it must be said, fair play to 122 Wayne Boland, who does like an unusual car now and then. He raced a taxi at Heavy Metal Classic in 2018. For the Mike Cook Memorial one year, him and his TLC teammates turned up in fresh Lincoln Town limos and took on the Team Black pair of 67 Ricky Beasley and 77 Patch. And he did it again on Sunday, even though it was only Street Bangers. He turned up with a Rover Metro, and yeah, you don't often see many of them anymore, but they were a good banger in their day. It was Team FBI and Team Bunny who carried on their war. They put in some good hits on each other. So yeah, it looked like a decent day at Stan Lake Flair opening fixture of the 2019 season. So hopefully plenty more to come from them too. And James, I believe when we were thinking about what our debate was going to be tonight, you mentioned about the Vauxhall Sphere debate with the Stan Lake Street Bangers. Yeah, you just got any quick thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, I suppose there's two sides to it, right? Because, I mean, Zephyras have been banned off and on in Speedworth domestic bangers. Basically the same reason Stan Lakes have. Their documents might say they're built on an Astra shell, but it's been proven in bangers that they are very strong against the class of bangers they're up against. I understand why drivers might have been a bit annoyed. It was quite short notice before the start of the Stan Lake season. Drivers might have had cars. Well, not start of Stan Lake season because of obviously HMC, but start of the Street Banger season at least. Drivers might have had cars built ready, maybe a lot of time, a lot of money because they wanted to be at that event, and I can see why maybe they're a bit upset with the short notice, but I understand their decision. I think if that's the way the promoter thinks they'll have bigger fields going forward, I can't see how it's necessarily a bad thing. When it comes to banning individual models, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like if one model's having a huge advantage, it's either the entire field turns into that car, which I don't really want to see an entire field of. Don't want to see an entire field of Zephyras in rookie bangers, or you have to ban it, and that's the decision they made. Whether it would be the right one for them remains to be seen, but I can understand why they made it. I think it just would have. I think it might have been better for everyone if the decision was made maybe at the end of the last Street Banger season before they moved on. I don't know what you think about that, Jordan.
No, I must admit, we've had the discussion about Vauxhall Spheres in domestic bangers, and I think I'm just going to say what I said for that. Even though in Stan Lake Street Bangers there's a lot of Ford Focuses, which are hard cars, I think if you compared that to the strength of a Vauxhall Zephyra, even though it's still limited prep and welding, I wouldn't fancy being in that Ford Focus or even a Ford KA or the Rover Metro against one of them. I think Zephyras are maybe more suited to national bangers, 1800cc non-Mondeos, 2-litre non-Mondeos. I think that was actually the first time a Zephyra was raced. I think it was by a 252 Stephen Bugler at one of the HMCs a few years ago.
I like how much qualification you had to put on that, though. A very specific class, isn't it? To say that up to 1800 non-Mondeos, you'd basically if they're almost in a class of their own for what they are, being 1.6 litre cars that are built as strong as MPVs but built on the same chassis as an Astra. I think that shows the difficulty of what promoters face and whether or not to allow them or not, based on pretty much that. They basically have to be in a class almost of their own.
Yeah, they basically do, and we saw that with the Sasson Young Rodius, and when the Toyota Privia was banned from Unlimited Bangers, I think it was Arena Essex tried an all MPV meeting, which has to be said didn't do particularly well. I think it got 3 cars, and I don't think out of them 3 cars there was a single Rodius or a Toyota Privia. So, maybe, as you say, in the under 1800cc class with non-Mondays, that would be the car of choice, whether we like it or not. But who knows?
I think when it comes to banning cars, I think there's good and bad. I mean, I think probably everyone might wish that the Radius was banned a bit soon, because I don't think anyone really likes the fact that the last ever car running in Bangers at Wimbledon was a Radius.
No, certainly don't, especially after 414 Doom's performance in his A60, which was absolutely brilliant. But anything more to add on that, James, or should we move on to the news?
I think we should move on to the news. I think we've pretty much covered that there.
Yes. Okay. First of all, we must say congratulations to 699 Stacey Holsworth on recently winning the 2 Litre National Banger Heartbreaker Championship at Birmingham this Saturday just gone. It was a fantastic drive in her Celica, and she was very rapid all night long. I've seen people were saying. And we must also say, sorry, James.
I was going to say from that event as well. I think I'm sure people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 699 Stacey. I think that victory in the Heartbreaker came on roughly to the day 10 years after her first ever. I don't know if it might be a first ever victory or first ever race in National Bangers. I think it might be a first ever victory. So it's just nice how that sort of has sort of come full circle. I'm looking at the results as well. If anyone wants to see any results for in-car race at the moment, by the way, you'll have to go to Speedworth/in-car races. I just tried to, and it turns out the incarrace.co.uk domain is suspended, so someone needs to pull their finger out and get that renewed.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I know.
Not very good.
I know. On the day as well, I'm just looking through the results. Heat 1 was won by 48 Stuart Belcher. Heat 2 by 186 Sophie Fazy. I know I made a comment earlier, but it appears that she was having a good day there. And 456 Nathan Roberts finished second in his heat and in the final, and 717 Jack Tuffin finished third. So there's a lot of strong performers between two of the earliest, biggest national meetings on that calendar. So it could be a strong year for everyone I've just mentioned, because we're mentioning them a lot already.
Yes, it could definitely. Still in the early stages of the National Banger season, but to win a championship or to get consistent results early on does put you in good stead to get on the grid at Ipswich in the Unlimited National Banger World Final in October. And moving on, we must also say congratulations to 41 Dale Furless on winning the 2019 Bangers Champion of Champions at Eastbourne recently. And James, I believe you were at the meeting.
I wasn't. I wasn't there.
Oh, wasn't you there?
No, I wasn't there.
Sorry, I thought you was there.
No,
well, I was just going to ask you what your thoughts on the meeting was.
I was going to go down to the meeting, as you know. I went the year before with you, but I couldn't make it this year, unfortunately. I was going to offer to work it, but I just couldn't make it in the end, unfortunately. So no, I wasn't there. The feedback I've heard from the people that was there was that it was quite good. So that's something.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go then. Quite good. We're professional as ever here on Caged Full Throttle. So, of course, many people would have known by now about the situation with the Bellevue Stadium in Manchester at the moment. Obviously, we really, really, really want to keep fighting, and we want to keep preserving stadiums across the country. We've lost Wimbledon Stadium, Coventry and Arena Essex. 3 stadiums within the last 4 years, and that is just 3 too many. And the threat's just getting bigger and bigger, and in all honesty, I don't think it's a joke anymore. So the Bellevue have a petition signed up online, and they're currently hovering just under the 8,000 signature mark. But they would really like to get to 10,000 signatures as soon as possible. So for anyone that hasn't signed that, please do sign it. Every little does help. I know it's corny and it's a cheesy saying, but please do keep signing. Keep sharing with your friends, your family, your dogs, your next door neighbours, your cousins, whoever. Just get the word out there, because we do really need to preserve stadiums.
And I think there is actually, so I do actually think there's a real genuine chance of the more publicity, the more people sign the Bellevue petition. And I know people have said it's never worth not doing it, as happened with Wimbledon and Coventry, because even though the petitions failed in the end, it's always worth doing it, because I think the more publicity it gets, that the danger that our sport faces from track closures, the better. But I do actually genuinely think with Bellevue there's a real good chance of there being enough support to stop this. I think there's multitudes of reasons to go with this, but I think one of the main ones is that whole area has got a huge. If you want to build, it's right next to the National Speedway Stadium. So if people are going to complain about noise from racing or anything like that, then how can they say that when it's next to another motorsports arena? So it really annoys me that with a lot of these planning things that most of it focuses on greyhounds and rather than focusing on the motorsports aspect of it. That happened famously with Wimbledon and Coventry. When it closed, motorsports was almost ignored in the developers' planning application, probably for a reason. They wanted to make it seem as it was just greyhounds and nothing else. So I really do think that there is a real good chance that a lot of there could be a real impact. Yeah, I think that's basically what I've got to say there.
Yeah, and I completely agree with everything you've just said about the National Speedway Stadium. And
I don't know if you know, Jordan, but is there a reason why when the National Speedway Stadium was built, it couldn't have been built in a way that would allow Brisker to race there?
I think that Bellevue wanted more prestigious events, speedway events. You know, it hosted the World Speedway World Cup final. And there is a hope of maybe in the near future moving the British Speedway Grand Prix away from Cardiff to Bellevue. So I don't think they wanted stock cars there to impact on that, but I do agree. Like as we've said before, it would have made more sense to do that. More money, more income for the ground, the team, and the landowners as well. Yeah.
I mean,
who knows?
It's just a bit of a shame, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And
what's also...
It's because you've got two sports that could theoretically share the same space. And by the way, we just got a bit of news from Rob. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it onto the show tonight.
Oh, okay. That's a shame. Well, James, what should we do? Should we open it up to the public? If anyone wants to dial in, or...
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we have currently... 1 second. We currently have a load of listeners on Facebook and Spreaker. If any of you guys want to get involved in the quiz in the next 5 minutes or so, drop a message into the Facebook chat and we can see if we can get anyone dialed into the show. If not, Jordan, do we have a backup option?
Well, if you want to, I'll lead you on to the next segment and I will see if my dad's free or if he wants to dial into the show or come and sit in my spot for a minute and you can run through the questions with him. But obviously, we don't want to say too much on this, but on the subject of closing...
Yeah, I mean, talking about how professional we are, I mean, this is literally us having to think on our feet, and you can see how much we're struggling. But never mind.
Yes, it is. Matt Josie, we can't wait for you to return. That's all we're saying.
I don't think people realise how hard Matt Josie has to work to keep us all in line and professional sometimes. Yeah, exactly. We lose Ed, we lose Matt, and we just fall to pieces.
Yeah. Oh. Right, so obviously we don't want to say too much on this, but obviously St Day could be closing at the end of this season. There's a threat of that going as well. So it's a shame. It just shows you that the threat of tracks closing is still there.
Yeah, the St Day one's an interesting one. I've been trying to follow it. Without, I obviously don't know the full story. St Day is a long way away from where I spend most of my time around tracks. It does seem to be a case of it's if anything, they've done the right thing about thinking long term here. That there is a long term threat, so they're being quite proactive here about making sure that the event is used. Now, there's probably a bit of that in the sense of you saw how. I don't want to be cynical because I really do genuinely believe they're doing it for entirely the right reasons to make sure the track is being used. But I wonder if some of that has come from seeing how much arena crowds went up once it was announced they were closing. Not dramatically made for domestics, but you saw how popular Firecracker was. It might be the most in-demand banger meeting that ever came about. And so I think by seeing that people only seem to know what they've got when they realise how real the risk is of it going, I do think maybe that might have had an impact on their thinking. So, I mean, if anyone down towards Sunday, just please go and support your track as much as possible for the domestics as well as the bigger events. Because if we don't support the tracks while they're there, then we're only going to miss them when they're gone.
Yes, definitely. And James, I'm going to do something quite drastic here. Normally we'd do the discussion after the news, but should we move on to the mouldy old quiz next? Because very kindly, and ladies and gentlemen, this is something quite drastic. My dad is about to take on the mouldy old quiz. He's quite nervous. He's giving me a great big smile. So, Dad, are you ready?
So, can you hear me, Paul? Hello?
Hello. Yes, I'm ready.
Hello, Paul. So, it's for those who don't know, what we've got now is Paul Hollands. This is Jordan's dad, and it's nice to have the guy from the Hollands who actually knows what he's talking about on the show. Sorry, Jordan. Okay, I'll go through the rules with you. I know you're a regular listener to the podcast, but I'll just go through them. You've got 90 seconds, and as Jordan is currently off mic, I'm going to have to do it myself as well on that. You get 90 seconds to answer 10 questions. At any time, when the quiz starts, I'll say the words green, 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 and then I'll start asking the questions. If you need a clue, you can say thumbs down, and I will say red, 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 and I'll give you a clue to that question. Once you have a guess at that clue, we'll restart the clock. You have to wait for the question to finish before you can answer, and if there are any left at the end, I'll go back round. Once we get to the end of the quiz, I'll say red, 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 and we'll see how you do. I'm sorry Jordan's dropped you in it here, so if I can give you any hints on the way, I will do, because it's like I said, we've had to think on our feet here. I'd also like to also just extend my thanks as well, both on behalf of me and on behalf of my partner Sarah, because the guys listening won't know this, but Jordan and his dad, we regularly go to watch banger meetings together, and Paul is one of the most hospitable men that you'll ever meet, one of the nicest guys to sit and watch a race with. So just thanks from me and Sarah on that, and let's get ready for the quiz. Okay, so I'm going to start the rolling lap music. You won't hear it, but hopefully, we've had technical gremlins tonight. Everyone listening at home will. And when I say green, 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 we will start the quiz. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, and we are green, green, green. Name 2 things you can now win points for in the Speedworth Entertainers League for qualification for the World Final.
Paint job.
Yep.
And Entertainers Award.
Yeah, Racing Entertainers, correct. Which car have Stanlake banned this year in Street Bangers? Which car of Street
Thumbs
Bangers?
down. Thumbs down.
Thumbs down, thumbs down. Okay, stop the clock, stop the clock. Okay, so the clue is that we've just been speaking about it on the podcast. It's based on an Astra.
Zafira.
Correct. Restarting the clock. Okay, who is the national hot rod gold top that has just come back from racing in South Africa with Liam Lake and Joey Reynolds?
Billy Wood.
Incorrect. The Bears and which team have been famed for their jacking trains in the last 2 Bears bashes? The Bears and which team?
DWO.
Oh, incorrect. What was unusual about the car used by 353 Dan Buckley used at the 2018 Stan Woods Memorial? What was unusual about the car he used?
Left-hand drive.
Incorrect. And we've had to come to red, but I'm going to squeeze one in quickly. Which food dish is Mildenhall widely famous for being the best in stock car racing?
Fish and chips.
Correct. Okay. Oh, how did you find that?
Very poor, but I was dropped in it at the last minute.
You were absolutely dropped in it at the last minute, and I can attest to how hard it is when you're under the pressure of the questions and you know it's there. So yeah, you got the first one. You got two of the things right for what you can get points for. So that's one there. Actually, that's 2 because it was 1 point for each. You got the Zafira after the thumbs down. The guy who's just returned from South Africa after racing with Liam Blake and Joey Reynolds. It's 76, another guest of the show actually that we've had on, number 76, Adam Maxwell. Yeah. The Bears. Yeah. The Bears and which team have been famed for their jacking trains at the last 2 Bears bashes? That's Bears and Poshwash. They've been flying in and entertaining the crowds in the last 2 Bears bashes, and we'll probably see it again. What was unusual about the car? I wouldn't have known this. This was a Jordan question. You know how much his banana racky is for cars. It was the first VW camper van that's been used in Bangers.
Oh.
And you got the Mildenhall question right for fish and chips. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you beat me by 2. So I wouldn't worry too much. We'll go through a couple of other questions that were here as well, and just see if you would have known the answers. The last F1 who won the last? We always throw in a question something slightly outside of banger racing. Who was the last F1 World Final winner at Coventry?
Frankie Wayman Jr.
That would have been correct. Who was the last Coventry Banger points champion?
Jack Overy.
No, it was Jack Foster Jr. And what was the name given to the annual Unlimited Banger team meeting? I wouldn't have known this one, I don't think, off the top of my head.
No,
the
I don't
answer's
know.
Battle of Britain. I wouldn't have got it off the top of my head, only with a bit of a hint.
That was another Jordan question then, was it?
It was. You can always tell which ones are my questions because they're about fish and chips, and you can tell which ones are Jordan's questions because they're a lot harder. But thanks for coming on very last minute there, Paul. It was again, thanks for coming on, and I hope to see you around over the next season.
I'm sure you will.
I'm sure I will. Thank you very much, mate. See you later. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
So there we go. A slightly impromptu guest on tonight's show. Can I just say a massive, massive, massive respect to my dad for doing that, because when I've mentioned it to him before, he's always gone, "No, I'm right, I'll be rubbish."
I think it's because you dropped it. I think it's because you dropped him right in it. I think that's like, it's sort of, by dropping him in it, I think you didn't really give him much choice. But he's done well there, especially as it was last minute. I was going to say, to get 4, I think that actually sits him comfortably in mid-table. It does. It does sit him comfortably in mid-table. It still leaves me comfortably near the bottom with the quiz host is joint bottom with the owner of the radio station we're part of, which says quite a lot.
Yes. Right. So now we will go back to the discussion, and tonight we will be discussing, do we need more team events to stop the team racing in individual events? And James, this was your idea for a discussion, so do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, it was my idea. I'm not necessarily saying that. Yeah, there definitely should be. It was just a thought that I've had, because in individual events we hear so much about how it's about teams and the discussions that go on everyone's favourite forum or on Facebook tend to ignore the individual drivers and their performances, more hyping up team events. Now, that's good for the promotion. Teams racing in individual events, people are happy to come and watch that. It's good for the drivers in a way if they know they've got teammates out there. But I just wonder if maybe, technically, I'm not sure however much this is enforced. The ORCI rules for National Bangor say team racing in individual events will be penalised. We all know why that's not enforced for multitudes of reasons. It would be so hard to police. How do you know what really is that? But at the same time, if you had more team events, maybe it'd be easier to police, because you could say to the teams, look, you've got your chance to have a go at each other. I've noticed, I think it might be, I can't remember where it might be Swaffham, but I think there's a 10v10 on the cards that's being lined up, coming up. Just things like that, where teams actually have a chance to have a team race, and therefore, in individual races, it can be more about individual racing. I do remember going down to Hensford when I was much younger for the national team championship. I know you said Battle of Britain in the answers, but I do remember the team races at Hensford, which were great days. They were split into teams of 4. You could have A and B teams. A and B teams would be on different sides of the bracket, so they wouldn't tend to be on track at the same time till the very end. And they were great days out. They were really good days out, with sort of numbers you'd see at Civil War, sort of crowd numbers you'd see at Civil War. Basically like Civil War, which is a team event. I think there should be more team events. I think the difficulty is putting them on all the time, because while it's easy to have 3 or 4 members of a team turn up for a domestic or a qualifier, it's harder to get 4 or 8 members to a team event. Everyone remembers how much hype there was around Skegness last year, and it was a great event, but from the original numbers it started at, the numbers dropped down quite a bit by the time it started. That's not to take away from the event, it's just because how hard it is to make sure all your drivers are ready. They haven't had commitments come up that means they can't make it. They haven't had their car blow up last minute. So I can understand the logistics behind it. But personally, I would rather have individual races. While it's good to see guys out there in their team colours, and they obviously will turn up together, they work together, it would be nice to see individual races more decided by individual driving, and have more team events that allow that sort of team war to happen. That's just my opinion. That's the reason I suggested it. I'm not suggesting anything bad's going on or anything. I just think that with that split, if it was logistically possible, might have better racing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm going to throw in my side of the argument now, and I think no matter how many team events you put on, I still think you will end up with team racing in the individual events. I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing, because I think it's always been that way. You look back at the Arena of Essex team series that they used to do, in which there'd be a certain number of qualifying rounds, and then the top 2 teams in the points would go into a head-to-head race in about mid-September. And it would be absolutely fantastic. You'd get some great meetings with loads of crashing. But even in the domestics or the individual events, you'd still get them team wars like the Gladiators and Bad Company, Gladiators and Cream Team, Gigglers and Midnight Runners with the Desert Rats as well. You'd still get all them teams crashing together in the individual events.
Sorry to interrupt there, Jordan, but I think what's quite interesting is I had 2 thoughts then when you were listing those teams. a lot of them go back to the real sort of big days of arena, where team racing and individual events was what made arena really special. But then I then had a second thought: is that part of the reason that things started to die down a little bit was because if you weren't a member of one of these big teams, you'd struggle when you're out there. Sorry, it's just while I had that thought, because I'd have forgot it by the time.
No, that is a fair thought, but I just think that, you know, in this day and age, even if it is an individual event and no one's even in team colours, you do get people saying, they're just a loads of mates racing around. And yes, essentially, that is what it is. That is what banger racing is and has become. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. You know, you've got the old expression, no mates but beyond the gate and stuff like that. But I also think, I know you said about having more team events would sort of stop that whole team racing effect in the individual events. The more team events that you were talking about was actual head-to-heads, you know, like the old national teams, the Civil Wars, you know, a new one's Mildenhall versus Trackstar. And while these meetings are good, once a year, they're probably some of the best meetings you're going to get around the UK in any banger season, but they do also discourage from car saving, which I think will make it a lot more expensive. And I'm just wondering if you put on too many team meetings or head-to-heads, that maybe drivers will start to get a little bit annoyed by them. The fact that, yes, while they are going and crashing, that maybe, you know, they can't save cars as much, and it would be expensive building a fresh car every month because you've got another head-to-head coming up.
That is an absolutely fair point. That is absolutely fair point. I never even think of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, you know, me and you were at Civil War together this year, and we both said what an amazing meeting it was. Team events do have their place in banger racing, but I think it is still all about the individual events. Whilst in a way your mates try and take out your position for you. I mean, it's a trait that's been in banger racing for many, many years. It's never been completely individual.
And it's so difficult to police, isn't it? I think that's the point. I think I mentioned as well. It's like the rules say that team racing in individual events will be penalised, but it's so difficult to police. It's a banger race. If someone wants to hit the person in front of you, or pull out on a car, or in a turn where you're allowed to go on oppo, if they want to turn around and take a car out, it's a banger race. They've got every right to take that car out. It's in the rules. They're allowed to do that. Just because their teammates behind them, I mean, how do you prove that? He might just say, I turned around and that was the car that I saw that I was squared up to hit. I do see the point. I don't think there's an answer for it, and I think that's why things are like they are, and maybe we've discovered why things are the way they are, because there isn't really an answer for it.
Yeah, no, and I know what you were saying there about the turning around. I've always said, to be honest, I'm for turning around in like world finals and such, because banger racing it's partly luck, and also having the skill to avoid other cars. I think if you want to see who the fastest...
The world final is the one race that I don't like turning around in. I think it adds I think once you get to that grid, you've gone through qualifying rounds and World Series where you are allowed to turn around, and once you're on that grid, I think that sort of element, you've dodged that element of chance all the way through. I think that is the one race where maybe everything else, fair enough. If someone is as quick as you, they can pick you up down the back straight, and that's fine. But it's just my opinion. I think that the world final is the one race where it shouldn't be turning around.
See, I'm the opposite of that. I think that if you're going to have turning around in, you know, like the Banger World Series rounds this year, then you should definitely have it in the world final. As I was going to say, you know, banger racing, you need luck, you need the skill to avoid other cars. And you also need the speed as well, don't get me wrong. But just having a race or the world champion just based on pure speed, I just think that sort of
fair enough. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Puts it into the context of actually going out and having to build a £5,000 race engine or
And to be fair,
racing tyres.
And to be fair, I've just had a thought as well. There are examples where not being in a team has benefited. Scratchy became a world champion because the Creams, TMT, and Midnight Runners decided to go into each other, and Scratchy just picked up the pieces behind. So I think, so maybe it can go both ways. This might be one of the first debates where people haven't all agreed, and there's only two of us on the show this week.
Yes, exactly. See, I don't, Matt. If you're listening, I don't always sit on my fence. Sometimes I do get off it.
You usually always agree. Me and you always agree. This is weird.
Yeah, well, this is weird. Maybe we should do the show just by us together more often. Maybe we'll start disagreeing a lot more.
maybe end up hating each other. End up hating each other by the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just some thoughts from other people that aren't on the show tonight. Obviously, Ed said you're always going to need help in racing, whether it's on track or off it. Valid point, but then obviously that brings into the whole point I made earlier about no mates beyond the gate. At what point do them people stop helping you and start wrecking you again? Is it right? Is it wrong? Who knows? I've never raced. I've never been in that position. But that's certainly another thing to throw into the hat. And obviously Rob agrees with you, James, actually. He said that national teams at Hednesford needs to return with a totally fresh revamp.
Yeah, it was when I was a kid, it was one of the events I always looked forward to. I can't remember the exact year, it was the last one I went to, but I would have been about 6 or 7 years old. My parents got me into Bangor Race because they were friends with a member of the Birmingham Wasps, and I remember being at Hednesford cheering on for the Wasps. It was like Civil War, where there's that good atmosphere of banter and stuff. I mean, I would be all for a return to Hednesford as well, because it's in the middle of the north and the south, so you get a good range of teams. I'd be well up for 4-a-side teams, maximum 2 from each team at Hednesford in that format again. I'd love that to come back.
Well, there you go. Maybe even Rob can get together and go and speak to InCar Racing and go, in 2020, we want national teams back. We'll organise it. And, you never know. Maybe it could be the Cage Bangers Presents the national teams return at Hednesford.
We'll call Paul Gerrard once a week between now and it returning.
Yes, please do. Keep your eyes out for that, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe if you want to have any comments on the message board anything like that, James?
Yes, there are a few little comments. For those of you involved with Bangor social media, one of our listeners, Adam Brown, you might know him as Arena Adam. He was one of the most dedicated fans of Arena. Had a bit of a scary thing happen to him on the train, pretty much the day before Valentine's Day. Basically, some absolute waste of space on the train started on him, basically because he asked to buy drugs from Adam, even though Adam doesn't even vaguely look like he's someone that was a drug dealer sitting on a train. Because Adam posted online, and there's a really good reaction, and the train staff met him at the next station and looked after him. He's replied with an update. He says he was threatened on the train on his way home after seeing his girlfriend. He said he's doing well. He's been given lots of support by a few thousand people online, including I've seen support on Facebook, on the various news sites, on Oval Chat. There's been a lot of support for him. So he just wants to say thank you for supporting him. He's doing well so far. And also, if you want to know what his next project is since Arena Essex closed, he's into Japanese things, so he's going to do some reviews of some Japanese food, shows, music, and maybe a review of some Japanese cars. So I just thought I'd give that a shout out, because I know a lot of people would have seen what happened. So his message is to let us know he's doing all right, and he's really grateful for all the support and the outpouring that he's had from the online Bangor community.
Well, that's great news, and obviously, Adam, from all of us here at Caged, mate, we're glad you're okay, and we're glad everything worked out in the end. we're glad your girlfriend likes the Roses, and we wish you all the best. And
Adam Brown, one of the high flyers on the cage leaderboard.
Yes, he is. He's a high flyer up there.
Very high flyer on the leaderboard. He's more of an anorak than you are, Jordan. He knows everything that happened at Arena. No,
yes, and that's saying something.
So I just thought it was nice of Adam to message in, and I hope people listening, if they're aware of the story, it's nice to know Adam's really thankful for your support, and I think that just shows what we can be like as a community. The online banger community, quite a lot sometimes gets a bit of grief because things get hyped well out of control, especially on forums or on Facebook. It's just nice to see when something like this happens to one of our own that people might not agree with his opinions on banger racing all the time, but that's what we're here to debate for. It's just nice to see that when something like that happened, that everyone was just completely, "Are you okay, Adam? Wish you all the best."
Yeah, definitely. We are one big happy family in the short oval racing scene. And I believe, just quickly, we're going to run through the fixtures for you guys over the next few weeks. Starting off this Saturday in Ireland, at Agheraoui, we have the Back to Basic Bangers with a 5 p.m. start time. This Sunday, we have the Aldershot Back to Basic Bangers Frostbite Challenge. Over 100 cars are booked in for that now, so that should be a fantastic.
I mean, just to go through the list, if you've been seeing the Southern Back to Basic scene, there's pretty much all the names you expect to see are out there. We've got 18 James Friston's out there, 20 Roger Wilco, a man who's seen pretty much everything and anything out on that track. Obviously, Keith is out there. Who else we got out there? We've got Nath Olden, Cage Cup champion, is out there. We've got obviously Jack Star's out there as well. Tim Weevil James is out there. We've got who else? We've got we have Joey's out there after his trip abroad. Trying to see if there we go, another Cage Driver of the Year winner. Obviously, if Jane's out there racing as well, I'd be surprised not to see her out there. 713 Lauren and Nets is out there. 5591 Aaron Morris is out there. I can't wait. This is going to be brilliant. 103 cars booked in as of today.
It's going to be an absolutely fantastic afternoon. And also in support, it is the 1300cc Stock Cars English Championship, which should be a cracking race.
Well, one of the drivers in that race has been listening tonight. I don't know if he's still listening, but he has been listening at some point. His name popped up. Someone that
very cool.
A friend of Cage who didn't for you. That's 243 Pete Bodger Osborne. He'll be out there racing. Great.
Yes, and his new car looks absolutely beautiful in that pink and black livery.
Oh, it looks amazing.
And as well, just changing the subject slightly, the work that him and Gordon Call done on that historic stock car for racing this year.
The one that went out at Aldershot the Sunday before. I think he had a couple of problems on the day, but on the whole, it looked amazing.
Yeah, so that's going to be a cracking afternoon of racing this Sunday. Racing gets underway at 12 o'clock. Moving on to the following week, Saturday 2nd of March at Birmingham, you have a National Micro Bangers World Qualifying Round. Also in action is the National Hot Rods. They return after their winter break for another English World Series round. The same night, up in Scotland at Lochgelly, you have the Big Van Bangers Sean Walsh Memorial. And on the following day, on Sunday, you have the Stanlake Arena 3-litre meeting featuring unlimited national bangers and under 1800cc non-Mondeo national bangers. So you'll probably see plenty of Vauxhall Spheres in that, wouldn't you, James? Wink, wink.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we haven't said the word Zafira enough on this show today, have we?
No. That should be the title when we put this on YouTube. The Zafira Show. Yeah, anyway, and that is going to be the last ever 3-litre meeting, the potential to be. So, Stanley Arena on Sunday the 3rd of March looks to be cracking. We've already mentioned the second round of the Banger World Series at Ipswich on Saturday 9th of March. Please note that is a 6:30 p.m. start time. So Saturday nights at Ipswich are starting 15 minutes earlier. So please bear that in mind. The following day at Aldershot, it is the Bangers' turn as they kick off their Gold Rush round. Bangers at Aldershot are normally very good, especially with the Gold Rush. Normally big entry cars and some good racing. Again, that's all getting underway at 12 o'clock. And you also have the Walton Stock Car Club host their annual Metal Mania, their big unlimited meeting of the year, which should be a cracking afternoon. It's normally a case of quality over quantity. So if you're up in the north of England and fancy that, please go give it a go. And also on that weekend, on Saturday 9th and 10th of March, is the Paddy Whack meeting and Last Rights, Last Ride. A very big entry of Unlimited and Micro National Bangers booked in for that, for the Saturday evening and Sunday afternoon. So it's looking like to be another cracking afternoon of racing. And is there any more, James, that you want to talk about?
No, I think you pretty much covered that there. I think it's the season's all kicking off again, isn't it? All in a flurry.
Yes, it is. And I was going to go on to mention the fixtures for the 16th, the 17th and the week after. But I believe our next podcast planned will be in and around 2 weeks, James, won't it?
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. So depends on what other people are doing. If we can get the team back together again. But now the season's kicking off, hopefully we'll be on every 2 to 3 weeks regularly again. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, we can have a quick flick through, but yeah, I'm fairly sure we'll be putting posters up for every one of the events coming up on the Caged Facebook group.
Yes, we will. So please keep checking the Facebook page, and of course, just checking everyone's websites. Speedworth, Trackstar, Walton Stock Club, DMC Race Promotions, HRP, for all the latest news and fixtures and changes and news and so. Whatever else you can't pick up from us here at Caged. And James, I believe that ends the podcast.
It has.
Unless there's anything else you want to add.
I think we've done all right there between two of us. But please come back soon, Matt. It's. I've said this before. You must be like an octopus, having to check Facebook, check Spreaker, check everything just to make sure it's all running. I really appreciate everything you do, and it makes me appreciate it more when I have to do it.
Yes. So there's nothing more for me to say, but good night, Mr. James Keane, and thank you ever so much for your technicality here tonight, running all the technical side of things. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you.
Thank you, Jordan. Thanks to the your dad, the Better Hollands. No, sorry, I'm just joking. You're both lovely. I'm sorry, I'm just joking.
It's like an EastEnders ending. No.
Well, given that I played the exit music as the intro music, it'll be the second time they hear that. Maybe I should just play the EastEnders music instead.
Yes.
Thanks to all of our listeners for getting involved and listening to us debating stuff over the last hour. And thanks, Jordan, for being an amazing standing host. And I'll see you soon.
Yes, see you soon. And for those of you that prefer Matt as the host, don't worry, I'm sure he'll be back next time. And I'm sure I'll be downgraded back to the panel again. But from all of us here at Caged, Full Throttle and Downforce UK, please take it easy, enjoy the racing over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you next time.